Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for signing in. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're signing in from. Just wanted to say hello. Welcome, everybody. And let's see. Good morning. Hi. Hello. I just signed in a little bit early. It's scheduled for 10:30, but I got a little ahead of myself, it looks like. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Hi, Elsa. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Thank you for taking time from your Sunday to be here. Just going to wait a little bit for a few more listeners. I signed in a little ahead of time, so I'm going to wait a little bit. Hello, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining in. I'm going to give people a few more minutes to sign in. Oops, adjusting here. Okay. So I'm just curious if anybody feels comfortable with sharing where they're joining in from. I'm in San Diego, and I'm just kind of curious where everybody else is, all my listeners today, this morning, this afternoon, depending on where you are. Let's see. Hi, Emily. Okay, so Emily's in. She's going to be my guest today. Thank you, Emily, for being here. All right, Elsa looks like she's from San Diego as well. Thank you, Elsa, fellow San Diegan with us here today. All right, we got a listener from New Jersey. Hi, Alex. If you want to share where you're from, just curious. I'm from San Diego. Just wondering where everyone's from. If anybody feels comfortable sharing where they're from, I'm from San Diego. Lots of people from San Diego. Love it. Okay, well, I'm going to get started. Thank you all for being here. This is my first live. And just to give you a heads up, it'll be about 20 minutes. And if you're willing and able to stay on with me for the full 20 minutes, I'd greatly appreciate it. It'll help me get a wider reach and hopefully be able to spread the word on Cushing's and help other people. I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Giselle Cortez. I have a master's in public health. I live in San Diego. I work as a data scientist in a clinic, and I'm happily married, have 2 beautiful daughters. And I recently wrote a book about the undiagnosed, misdiagnosed condition I lived with, which was Cushing syndrome, for approximately 7 years. And I say approximately, could have been 8, but that's about when I started developing some symptoms. And my book will be available next month in English and in Spanish. It is called Cushing Syndrome: From Misdiagnosis to Recovery. I welcome you to purchase it, take a look. I have an interest list on my Linktree on Instagram, but who would be a good person that might be interested? This is for people who, they are themselves a loved one they might know going through a difficult condition, a difficult medical challenge. They might want to learn about my journey because I believe that God places certain people in our lives, and there were people in my life that wanted me to get better, get healthy. They didn't know what was wrong with me. I shared a little bit with some people what I was comfortable sharing with, but I myself didn't even know what was wrong. So there were people in my life that helped me finally reach my diagnosis. And let me just add in Emily so I don't lose her. So, some of you may be wondering, what is Cushing's? Cushing's is the overproduction of the hormone. Oh, look, there's Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
So I'm just gonna kind of talk a little bit more about Cushing's and myself, and then I'll introduce you if you're all right with that.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Okay, so Cushing's is the overproduction of the hormone cortisol, and everybody needs it. But when it's overproduced, there are several symptoms that begin to arise. And there is Cushing's disease, which is caused by a pituitary tumor or tumors, which the pituitary is located in our brain. Or there is Cushing's syndrome, which is tumor or tumors located on the adrenal glands or other parts in the body. I also learned that Cushing's can be developed from the overuse of steroid medications. But in my case, I had the adrenal one, which is the syndrome, and I lived 7 years with it, maybe eight, until I went to a new doctor. And, I wish I would have done it sooner, but anyway, I was able to finally find somebody who heard me, who heard my symptoms and didn't just dismiss me because, I was a mom or I was pregnant or I had gone through other changes, right? But um, yeah, so when I had the syndrome, I had insomnia, weight gain. I went from 120 pounds to 168. That's a 40% increase in my body weight. I was diabetic in my third pregnancy, and not only were there physical changes and things that were happening to me, but along with them, there were some psychological changes and things that I didn't maybe want to admit to myself that I was going through. I was having a severe anxiety. As I mentioned, I have two daughters, and whenever they'd get sick, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was like the end of the world. I was having all sorts of fear taking over my life. And then I went into depression. I didn't want to admit it to anybody, much less to myself. But, I sought out some help, and it was mainly because I probably wasn't sleeping. I was very sleep deprived. My body was changing in ways that I didn't recognize myself anymore. And more than anything, I'm writing this book and I'm bringing awareness because I felt alone. I didn't know anybody else who was going through anything like me. I thought that perhaps other women or other moms were experiencing the same, but just maybe didn't talk about it. But then I realized, everyone looked a little differently than me, and I had a different body appearance than most women, most moms at my children's schools. Thankfully, feeling a lot better. I had the adrenalectomy last September. My adrenal gland was removed along with the tumor that was causing all these problems. And also now I'm thankful to say that I've met several other Cushing's warriors, and Emily is one of them here with us today. And we've chatted a little bit, so if everybody could just say hi and welcome Emily. We've chatted a little bit. She lives in Los Angeles County. She has a web development business. She's happily married. She loves to garden. She is very silly, is very lighthearted, sees the positive side of life, and she recently had the honor to present at a very big endo conference. I'm not really sure where, but I would want to know more about that, how she got invited to that. But before she talks about that, Emily, would you mind telling us what Cushing's you had? And she has a very interesting way of how she found out. If you could share with all the listeners, please,
Yeah.
how you found out that you had Cushing's.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is my first live, so it's exciting. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
So I actually, uh, maybe like 2014, started just having high blood pressure. I was always been an active person, pretty healthy lifestyle, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, but that also runs in my family, so I didn't think much of it. Um, then one day I get kidney stones. And in the scans, looking for the stone, the size, the location, um, the doctor mentioned these bumps on my adrenal glands that they weren't going to worry about. And I said, bumps? What do you mean bumps? So we looked into it a little further, and they were tumors, benign tumors. So they said to me, hey, there's no issue here as long as they don't keep growing. So let's check on them every year. Um, Fast forward to a year later, I moved to Los Angeles, and I check in with a new doctor, and the doctor was like, whoa, I don't think this is the case because you don't look the part, but there's this thing called Cushing's that I want to test you for because your previous lab results showed some really off numbers. So high cortisol. Anyway, they did all the testing, and I was eventually diagnosed with Cushing syndrome. Um, I didn't look the part. They did so many rounds of testing. I didn't have all these symptoms that a lot of Cushing's patients do end up having. That was because it was caught so early on. So a lot of the reason that I'm asymptomatic, or was asymptomatic at the time too, is because it was caught so early that it didn't really have enough time to wreak havoc on my body. Um, thank
That is so awesome. You're very fortunate, and thankfully, when you did go to, it sounds like another doctor is when they said, "Hey, you might actually have this," right?
So the tumor, I decided I did not want to get an adrenalectomy because, what doctors are saying is, hey, it will eventually get to a point where this is going to be really bad. It's going to take a toll on your body. So we have to now. We have to be proactive about it. And the immediate recommendation was, well, get a bilateral adrenalectomy, which means removing both of your adrenal glands that had tumors on both, or still do, actually. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't really understand what adrenal glands were. I didn't understand the role of cortisol in the body. New to me, I was scared. I was 28 years old. Um, so I didn't have enough information, and I didn't want to go remove body parts without.
Right. Right.
So I explored every other option, all sorts of Eastern medical, Chinese medicine, everything, right? Western medicine, a combination of, and then my doctor said to me, well, there's this clinical trial opening up that I think you would be a candidate for. So I was maybe one of 90 people globally to go into this clinical trial to test a new medication. Um, Fast forward, it worked for me. I was there was
Awesome.
Yeah, it was, I mean, with its side effects, of course, and it was a really process. But eventually we did find a dosage that suppresses cortisol. When FDA approved it, I started taking it, and I'm managing it well through medical therapy. I still don't want to do the surgery to remove my adrenal glands. Maybe science will continue to improve and I won't ever have to get there.
Right.
The symptoms
That,
that are just like a lot of the depression and anxiety is the hardest part.
yes.
A lot of blood pressure problems,
Yes.
muscle weakness and pain. So I still get those things. My cortisol does still spike, but it's not 6 times the normal anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I was told that, I mean, my tumor was rather large, and thankfully it was only on one of my adrenal glands. We as humans, I was explained, can live with one. But like you said, I am still on medication called hydrocortisone, and it does have side effects as well. Like you mentioned, muscle loss, muscle weakness. And I was producing 9 times the amount of a typical body. So I guess because I had it for that long, I had all the symptoms. My face was very swollen and round, the moon face. I had, very swollen abdominal area. And right now, because my body was so high, the delta, the change, going back to normal, that's why I take medication, because the drop is so significant that, my doctor previously thought I could get off this medication in a month, and I ended up with adrenal insufficiency in the ER, readmitted to the hospital. I told my husband I never knew what it felt like, but I felt like I was dying. I was throwing up. I couldn't stand up. I had gone from extremely high blood pressure to extremely low blood pressure. And the feeling of that is awful, and that's awesome that you have reacted so well to this medication, and I pray, that hopefully with modern medicine you will never have to have an adrenalectomy. And I pray that, for all the listeners out there who are also suffering from Cushing's, that, that they know that they're not alone, that there are many warriors, much like yourself and me. And we're out here, we're spreading awareness, and we're letting other people know that, these weird symptoms, they might add up to a little more. So now I kind of wanted to ask you, how did you get invited to the Endo conference, and where was it?
It was, well, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry that you went through all that, and
Thank you.
thank you for creating the awareness. Yeah, this is what it's about. Which leads me to how I ended up at the endocrine conference is
Yeah.
kind of doing similar, and kind of just spreading the word and telling my story because I think my story is interesting and how early it was caught. So essentially with the clinical trial that I was part of ending, I started taking this medication, and the pharmaceutical company asked me if I would be a patient ambassador and kind of just talk to other patients and doctors about my experience with the medication and like what side effects I feel and how I've been handling it. Um, so as part of that, there's these endocrine conferences that happen. There's a couple that happen throughout the year in various places, and it kind of always changes every year. But this one was in San Francisco 2 weekends ago.
Oh,
And
wow, recent.
yeah, very recent, very recent. And it was all endocrinologists or healthcare practitioners in that space. So nurses, receptionists, all sorts of different people that are frontline. Um, and the idea for me speaking as a patient was I'm speaking to all these doctors alongside another doctor who's speaking next to me, and he gives his whole presentation on how the medication works after. But I'm there to say, hey, I don't look the part, but if you're seeing XYZ in your patients, test them. And I
Right.
just because somebody doesn't look it, listen to what they're saying, listen to their symptoms. Nobody knows their body better than they do.
Exactly.
That was my experience, and every practitioner after that looks at me and says, well, you don't look like you have Cushing's. And I've had people like not believe me because of it. Um,
Right.
I have to call my endocrinologist and confirm and talk. So it's just helping to create this awareness in hopes that people will get diagnosed earlier, sooner.
Right. And so were there sessions like with Q&A from other patients? Were there other patients present or other people with Cushing's, I should say?
There were not other patients or people with Cushing's present. It was all healthcare providers. Uh,
Okay.
However, I have also attended some patient dinners. So there's a organization called I'm going to get this wrong now, Cushing's Research Foundation, CSRF. I got to look it up exactly what it stands for now. I'm embarrassed. I don't remember.
No worries.
But they host an annual dinner every year. I believe it's in Minneapolis, at least it was when I went, and there was 40 patients there.
Wow.
Speak to um, about my experience, and they talk about their experience, and we all just kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and because it's everybody presents different and everybody's experience is different. Your doctor told you would be on your medication post adrenalectomy for a month, and it's been longer, and then there's people that are on it for years, or
Right. Yeah, you're so right. The presentation is so different in every person. My first symptom was the extremely high blood pressure, but I one of the suggestions from one of my great friends was, hey, you know what? There are Cushing's support groups on Facebook. I never even thought of looking. There are so many people on there. You guys, there's people from Ireland, from Canada, from Finland. There's people everywhere. This affects people worldwide. And everybody, their posts, their comments, hi Liz, they share how their experiences have been so different and how they felt unheard or how it went years. I mentioned I went 7 to 8 years. There are people on there that said 20 years,
yeah,
30 years. I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel for people that perhaps didn't have anybody that would listen, or I really want to use my experience. It was an awful time. It was horrible. I felt, I shared in a previous podcast, I didn't ever want to be in pictures with my husband and my daughters when they were born. I felt ugly. I felt like I looked deformed, like I looked weird, and I regret not being in pictures with my children. But now I know that my purpose is to bring awareness, to help others, to share with them, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You might need medication, but you know what? You're not dealing with all these horrible symptoms anymore, perhaps. I mean, maybe some lesser. I mean, would you care to share when you said you mentioned there are some side effects to your medication, what type of side effects you deal with today?
Yeah, for a while it was really bad GI issues. Um, that's subsided. That's gotten a lot better, I will say. I still get a lot of muscle pain, and it's hard to say, is that a cortisol problem? Because I still fluctuate. Um,
Right,
all shifts, it's for those that don't know, it's very different throughout the day. It does a whole, it's highest in the morning and lower at night, and it's a rhythm. It's very natural. But with that rhythm, sometimes the adrenals, because of that tumor, there's still a mass there, so they can't really control the production of it fully,
right,
um, even with the medication. So I do still have, I guess, what I call flare-ups. I don't know if that's the right terminology. I'm not a doctor, so this is not medical advice or anything,
right,
um, but when I'm triggered with something really stressful, if a stressful event happens, I feel like my body still doesn't really know how to properly do that.
right.
So I do feel these fluctuations. Um, and it's hard. And as much as you can tell yourself, like, what's going on, right? But your brain still goes into this panic, and the anxiety is awful, and you get
I,
sad, depressed, and
yeah, I completely understand. I completely understand. And you just reminded me when we are going through stressful situations, myself, I'm 10 months post-op, but I have to what's called stress dose. I have to take more hydrocortisone when I'm extremely stressed or I get sick. In January I had an awful flu. I had to take double the amount of medication that I'm used to. And that creates anxiety for me still sometimes because as I mentioned, I have two young kids and when they come home from school with a little cold or something, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I told my husband I'm scared. I don't want to like be around them, but I don't want to not be around them." And it's like this debilitating anxiety that I'm processing, I'm working through, but I pray to be off the medication soon and not worry so much about a common cold, because when I take more medication, as you mentioned, my back hurts, my knees hurt. I was going to physical therapy. I'm trying to be better about going to the gym
yeah, it's
two to three times a week. It's helping me regain some of the muscle I lost when I finally lost all the excess weight. But that was a process as well. I couldn't go down the stairs in my own home. I was like sitting on my butt to go down the stairs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like in my 30s. I would ask my mom, "Hey, mom, do your knees hurt?" And she would look at me like, "No. Why do your knees hurt?" And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
I do, my knees hurt.
it's so eye-opening when you experience that, and you just are like, wow. It's stress plays such a huge role on the body physically, and just
Right,
like these sensitivities really make you realize that, and like
right.
what cortisol does and what happens without it, and the lack of, like, the fatigue that I feel sometimes.
Yeah, to me, it's
Unbe-
wild
Yeah,
because, oh, thank you, Rosario. She's saying we're both warriors. I It's just wild because I went from one extreme to the other. I went from like I could do everything, I'm on go 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 go, anxiety, like I could do everything, to like, oh my gosh, I barely have enough energy to like shower.
yeah.
And I told my husband, I don't know what's worse. Like I don't know if it's worse to feel like I can't sleep because my brain is always on go 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 go, or if it's worse to feel like, "I'm sorry baby, I can't take you to school today. I don't even think I could drive right now."
I don't even think I can get up to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm really
Right.
considering just
It's just the pendulum swing
yeah.
is so drastic. You're like, well, I'm glad I'm not over there anymore, but I want to be better, right? And so I'm trying to be patient. That's another thing I'm working on is the patience. I first thought I'd be off in a month, but, here we are 10 months later. But overall, when I see my doctor for follow ups or my specialist, I tell them, I am so thankful to you. Because when I walked into that office, the only words I remember are, I believe you. I know, I hear you. It doesn't have to do with your exercise. It doesn't have to do with your diet. And those words were a heaven sent because I was fighting for my life. I'm in my 30s and I felt like is this what I'm doomed to be till, forever. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, every time I see them, I give them hugs and I'm like, you guys gave me my life back. You gave me who I was before. You made me that happy, vibrant, energetic, you know, woman that I am, that I want to be for the future. And so, if anybody out there is listening and feels like you might need a second opinion, please, please go. Don't wait as long as I did. There are many great doctors out there that, you know, they could help you. You're not stuck. And, maybe someone out there is just, they'll be able to help you.
Keep asking questions, keep
Keep asking questions.
yourself for sure. Because, like, I mean, I mentioned very early on in this is nobody knows your body better than you. So you have a PhD in you. So when I'm in this room full of doctors and I'm thinking, what am I doing talking to a room full of doctors? These people are brilliant. They're so much smarter. And actually, the endocrinologist said to me, she's like, nobody is smarter about you than you.
That's so right.
So then that gave me the confidence to be able to say.
Yeah, I love it. Well,
And for
and
those that are questioning or see some symptoms or want to know more, those going back to those support groups that you mentioned, there's so many people in there that are in there because they are suspicious about something going on in their own body. So they're asking questions to try and figure out, like, hey, should I be looking into this? So by all means, go into the support groups. Just last night, I was in there and I saw somebody write, hey, I'm wondering if anybody experiences like they wake up in the morning and then they're still tired, so they have like a second morning. And I started laughing so much because I have a second morning with my dog every morning. My
yeah,
husband, one of us, we get up and I'm just like, I can't do this. And I lay on the couch again with the dog and we have a second morning.
right. Yeah, I feel you. Sometimes we just got to go back and take a little
Yeah,
nap, then you feel so much better and you can carry on with the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I also wanted to share, everybody. Emily también habla español. Me dijo que le encantaría leer mi libro en español. Y gracias, Emily. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. And I think all our listeners really enjoyed your company. And this was my first live, too. So I'm very thankful that, we were able to do it together. And I appreciate everybody, all the callers, for being on here and learning a little bit more about Cushing's and both of us and our stories. And please feel free to reach out to myself or Emily. And thank you guys. Thank you so much, Emily, for being here.
Un placer, gracias. Thank you very much, everybody.
Adios.
Ciao.
Bye.